It is game day once more in the college football playoff. For the first time ever in the 12-team era, the semifinals begin tonight. In Miami, it's the Orange Bowl between two programs you know very well in college football, the 6-seed Penn State and the 7-seed Notre Dame. DRS, the story entering this matchup tonight in South Florida is how close and competitive it is expected to be by the odds. We have seen market movement, but basically the Irish opened as a slight favorite. They got up to a 2.5-point favorite earlier this week. Now, as we get ready for this game on this Thursday game day, there are just 20 cents of difference on those money line prices to win outright and earn a spot in 2 Mondays from now, national championship game in Atlanta. The lowest total we have seen in the college football playoff is 45.5, both for the Irish's game in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia and tonight against the Nittany Lions and James Franklin. Here we are, DRS, on this Thursday. It is game day once more in the CFP semis at the Orange Bowl. Do you still feel the same way about this game as you did before?
I do. I'm actually feeling a little bit better because if it is Jeremiah Love that left last week's game after re-aggravating a knee injury and isn't 100%, and sometimes you take a look at head coaches and what they tell you. Now you take a look at James Franklin with Abdul Carter. We'll get to that in just a moment. But also with Freeman going, hey, look, nobody's 100% at this time of the year. That lets me know that Jeremiah Love truly isn't anywhere close to 100%. And if you are on the FanDuel Sportsbook and saying, okay, who's the best running back on Notre Dame? It's by far Jeremiah Love. Look at his price, Ben. 35.5. Look at Jadarian Price, 48.5. That's going to tell you the picture here because Notre Dame does have a very good football team and a staunch defense and has won some big football games. I get that here. But I just look at both offenses and try to break it down. I just see Notre Dame having a slightly tougher time moving the football, especially now that we think Love is going to be hindered in any way. Keep in mind, Love being seen at practice with a bulky knee brace on, which maybe they drop it down to a compression sleeve, whatever, but they're clear. Something is wrong with that knee, and for one of the most electric football players in college football to not be at 100% against a good defense when he's maybe the focal points of your offense, that's giving me a little bit of trepidation. So nothing has changed this week to bring me back to Notre Dame. But as you see, minus 120, plus 100 on the money line. This is a great football game against two evenly matched teams where if you're just looking for a little bit of the excess, which might not be there out of Notre Dame's Jeremiah Love.
Expected to be close and expected to be a low-scoring affair. A defensive struggle where we have seen two elite defenses stand on their heads throughout both of their first 2 college football playoff games. Penn State victorious in both against SMU and Boise State to get to this point. Both of those games, the Nittany Lions as a favorite. Penn State covering in both, under in both. Notre Dame, a slight favorite at least in both of their opening 2 matchups, covering in both, under in both. The key matchup to me, DRS, is not actually Notre Dame's rushing attack against Penn State's elite defense. It's the other side of the equation. A 2-headed monster in the backfield for the Nittany Lions and Nick Singleton and Katron Allen against the Notre Dame defense that throughout the regular season did allow some chunk plays on the ground and some yardage to be accumulated in terms of their opponent's rush game. But throughout the college football playoff has been a stone wall. What does that look like tonight? We'll talk more about the props on the other side of the break. But just from the allure of the Orange Bowl here in the college football playoff semifinal, Notre Dame has not won a national championship since 1988. Penn State 2 years prior to that, 1986. Both hoping for a victory tonight to get a shot in a national championship game again. The Irish did play in the 2012 BCS national championship game. Did not work out all that well against Alabama. So there are those thoughts for how this game is going to play out. DRS, when you see that total at 45 and a hook, again, we expect offense to be hard to come by tonight in South Florida. You favor Penn State. What does it mean for that over-under of 45 and a hook?
Yeah, it's really no correlation in this, right, Ben? It's like, hey, if the game goes over, it's clearly a Penn State game. If the game stays under, it's Notre Dame. I don't think that's the case because styles do make fights at this point. If you are James Franklin coming in and saying, you know what, I think our defense might have a little bit of an upper hand if Love is banged up for Notre Dame, then why on the opposite side are you throwing the football all over the place when you know, as Ben just pointed out, Singleton and Allen are phenomenal as a 1-2 punch, just like you take a look at Ohio State and handicap them. So if they're going to say, okay, we understand we might be the better football team if we don't make mistakes, we're really going to run the rock. And on both sides, you take a look at Riley Leonard could really get after it. I loved in the last game they played where it was like, okay, 11.5, I believe was his carries number, or 9.5 in that range. He easily went over that. He's going to have to do that again. So if we're not objectifying the passing game, saying that's going to be the key component for either side, you got to be looking at under. Because yes, you are going to get some big plays in the running game, 25, 30 yards. We're not talking about you playing an FCS team where you're breaking 85 to 95-yard touchdown runs. That's not happening here. And if you do get a long drive, Ben, maybe it is 13 or 14 plays because you're not picking up chunk plays, staying ahead of the sticks, converting 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 3s. That clock is going to bleed. So for me, there's no correlation in this game. I just feel like the gameplay on either side lends itself to an under.
Yeah, listen, I would agree with you as well, at least on paper, DRS. And not just because I don't think we're going to see a 7-3 game, just the nature of what Donnie alluded to there. If they are going to focus on the ground attacks on both sides, that's just going to eat up more of the clock, and why we see that total at 45 and a hook. I would say this, though. Prior to the college football playoff, Penn State went over in its Final Four, including that Big Ten title game, a shootout against Oregon, 45-37. Prior to the CFP, Notre Dame had played 10 games against non-MAC foes this year, averaged better than 43 points per game, and Notre Dame still an elite scoring offense this year as well, over in 7 of 10, but of course both have gone under in each of their 2 games so far in the college football playoff. Notre Dame has been perfect against non-MAC foes this year, 12-0, 11-0-1 against the spread. Penn State has been booked as a favorite in each of its first 2 games in the college football playoff. The Nittany Lions as a favorite since 2022, 34-1, 25-9-1 against the spread. But as an underdog in the last 3 years, that's where things get precarious for Penn State. Winless, 0-6 straight up, and only 1-5 against the number. But it's about winning outright tonight when you see those moneyline prices and the props next. The props for tonight's college football playoff semifinal matchup at the Orange Bowl in Miami between Notre Dame and Penn State. It is one of my favorite things because I do believe there are better edges in the prop market in college football, even in the CFP, than you will see around the NFL. And it's the individuals that will impact the outcome to earn a spot in a national championship game tonight between Penn State and Notre Dame. Let's start with the Irish, DRS. And you'll see Riley Leonard's passing yards probably be like, wait, is this Army-Navy? No, it's just how Notre Dame constructs their offense. But it's not just Riley Leonard's right arm, it's his 2 legs. You mentioned the difference between Jeremiah Love, who re-aggravated a knee injury in the quarterfinal game against Georgia that had really hindered him down the tail end of the regular season for the Irish. He has the lower of the props, even behind Jadarian Price, who actually has a lower prop than that of Riley Leonard. 14 carries, 80 yards for Leonard in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia. And basically, DRS, to ice away that game in the fourth quarter, whenever Mike Denbrock and the Irish needed a big play, needed a first down to move the sticks and keep winding time off the clock, they called the number of Big 13, the quarterback for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and that's the way you look at it because he is the focal point of that offense if he's running and running well. Because I even remember them bringing up articles or what they were saying for the regular season. Hey, look, we know the kid's a dynamic runner, but you can't run 15 or 20 times a game. Not because you can't do it, in the length of the game and put up 150 yards. Like, you won't make it to the end of the season. We need to save you. So the reason why I liked it last week was, okay, now we're in the college football playoff. If you want to get extra runs, that's worth it because technically there is no tomorrow if we lose the football game. So when you look at Riley Leonard at 49.5, he should easily achieve that. But as always in college football, the sack numbers take away from your rush numbers.
Sure.
Like, how many times do you watch like a Jalen Miller? Like, wait a second, I think I run for minus 15 yards in a game when I just saw him run 2 times for 25 yards. You take 5 or 6 sacks that lost at 15 and 20 yards, that goes against your rushing number, which is why in college sometimes I lean more to the rushing attempts than the actual rushing yards that they have. But I do think if this team is going to win, there is a correlation. If Riley Leonard rushes for 22 yards in this game, they better have a hell of a passing game to try to win. So there is something to be said about he better do that. And also, he's going to have to pick up maybe a bigger chunk because of the electric plays for Jeremiah Love just might not be there. Jadarian Price is a very good running back, and quite frankly, if he never got injured at Notre Dame, who knows what he'd be looking forward to this year. But Love has taken that electricity over, and rightfully so. He'll get more carries. But if you are looking for a correlation in winning football games and Notre Dame, it's probably directly on the legs of Riley Leonard.
Yeah, no doubt about it, DRS. He had a funny quote before that quarterfinal matchup against UGA in the offensive coaching staff at Notre Dame, his head coach, Marcus Freeman, asking him to slide as they did early in the year. And he said at this point, it's really a lost cause. Jeremiah Love is supposed to be good to go. That was the coach speak out of Marcus Freeman. How much pressure will Penn State be able to provide on Notre Dame's Riley Leonard tonight, as Abdul Carter is also supposed to be good to go? That's what James Franklin said in the lead up to tonight's Orange Bowl. On the other side, again, a passing yards prop that makes you question what kind of football game are we going to see. Drew Aller, 183 and a hook. A couple of dynamite touchdown tosses in that Fiesta Bowl quarterfinal matchup against Boise State, mainly to his outstanding tight end in Tyler Warren. But Drew Aller hasn't been tasked with doing much really the entirety of his career in State College or throughout the college football playoff. 171 yards against the Broncos, only 25 attempts, just 127 yards against the Mustangs of SMU, just 22 attempts for Drew Aller. If Penn State is going to earn a spot in a national championship tonight, DRS, what do the Nittany Lions need out of Drew Aller?
They need him to make the plays. It's almost like, J.J. McCarthy cloned here at this point. Hey, we know you got talent. And, boy, if you were in a system like down at SMU or Miami, you'd put up numbers, but you're not. You're in a system here that's hand the football off, and if we need you to make big-time throws, you got to be able to make them. And he has shown the distance to do that. You're looking at a quarterback that some are saying if he did turn pro this year would be a top 15 pick, and he's priced at 183 in a college football semifinal game. Make it make some sense. And even to throw 2 touchdowns is heavily juiced in your favor here of getting plus money. But if we are saying side by side, which quarterback do you trust throwing the football more? It is Drew Aller. I think he has a little bit more weapons and also is buoyed by a really good run game and maybe the best Swiss Army knife at tight end. So my expectations for Drew Aller are through the air tonight, and I do think he will succeed. Yeah. But does he even need Ben to throw for 185 plus to win this game with what we're expecting out of Notre Dame's offense if Love isn't 100% tonight?
We'll talk more about Penn State's backfield on the other side of the break when hour 3 is set to begin. But if you think Penn State keeps this game close or wins outright, you need Singleton and Allen to be great as they have been. Hour 3 on the horizon. We welcome you to hour number 3 live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across that Space Grizz network. A third and final hour, for the most part, dedicated to the college football playoff. It is game day once again in the CFP on this Thursday night in Miami. It's the Orange Bowl between Notre Dame and Penn State. Both the Irish and the Nittany Lions looking for a spot in a national championship game to claim that first national crown in nearly 4 decades. We continue our full breakdown from each and every angle in this third and final hour. We'll hear from the people about tonight's Orange Bowl between the Fighting Irish and the Nittany Lions. And then we'll hear from the mastermind of the college football pigskin, Joe Lisi, later on in this third and final hour. We'll get you that early prop perspective for the start of a wild card weekend in the NFL with Tom Vecchio in just a little bit as well, and some of the action around the association and on the hardwood tonight in basketball. DRS, a jam-packed third and final hour here on this Thursday.
Absolutely. Action never stops here. And we have to start like this is the start of something really good. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, playoff games in college football and in the NFL. Doesn't get better than that. And certainly every night giving you something. I'm actually more excited about this game tonight, Notre Dame and Penn State, than I am for Ohio State and Texas, which we think is going to be a fun game and a much higher scoring game. But there's a lot of edges tonight to go over. And also, keep in mind at the FanDuel Sportsbook, betting live could be key tonight because Ben understands this. You look at Jeremiah Love, who's not going to start the football game. Let's say doesn't get a lot of touches in the first quarter. You understand what that game plan is going to be. And the same thing with Penn State. Who's going to be chasing around Riley Leonard? Is it Abdul Carter shot out of the cannon, which he's been the entire season? Or is he only coming in on third downs to sort of try to save him? There's different angles to play, even if you're playing pregame and or live in-game stuff.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, DRS. And because of that injury perspective to two key significant contributors for both schools on different sides of the football, you'll get a feel of what the game flow looks like tonight. And if we are going to see any offense for a very low total of 45 and a half. But before we give you more of our thoughts on this game and break it down, take another deeper dive into the player props for tonight's Orange Bowl. We get to hear from the people. What is the best bet between Notre Dame and Penn State? We all find out together and Fade the Public. That's a lot of love from the public. Nearly 250 votes. The people fired up for game day once more in the college football playoff in the 12-team era. Out at SportsGrid on Twitter. What is the best bet for tonight's college football playoff semifinal game? The Orange Bowl between Notre Dame and Penn State. Is it the Irish as a slight 1.5 favorite, now just minus 120 on the money line? Only a 20-cent difference to where Penn State stands. Even money, plus 100, getting a 1.5. Could it be the over of that minimal total of 45 and a hook, or are we leaning under? DRS, it's really a toss-up between three of our four options. Most of the public, 35% backing the Irish tonight as a slight favorite, but 31.5% also voting for Penn State. More than 27% of this vote leaning on the under, points at a premium. Which way did DRS vote in this Fade the Public poll?
Yeah, went to Penn State plus 1.5, so the slight dog here based on this public poll, but also be a little bit more alarming if, let's just say, if Penn State and or Notre Dame had like 50 or 60% of the vote coming in with a line that's basically a pick 'em at minus 120 plus 100 on that money line number. So I don't feel too bad about sort of fading the public, but it is really close. And also, there are key edges on both sides. This is going to be a good football game, and also we're expecting it to be closer to the vest as opposed to a game that might have 55.5 or 65.5 points. So points certainly will be at a premium tonight, and long drives are what we're anticipating. For me, I just think Penn State overall has the better players at running back, at tight end, maybe at wide receiver, and the quarterback who can deliver those passes. But both of these football games have won all year long. And also the thing we like about this game, for the past 25 years in big game spots, you don't notoriously think of Notre Dame and Penn State winning in absolute big spots. Somebody tonight is going to have to win in a big spot, and it's going to be fun to watch to see which team does it and which team doesn't.
Notre Dame won its first major bowl game with the victory in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia in more than 3 decades. Penn State has won major bowl games that they have been expected to win on the outside of the college football playoff in the last few years. The Nittany Lions, even if it's only 20 cents, though, an underdog for tonight's Orange Bowl. The Nittany Lions, with James Franklin, since 2022, 0-6 straight up as an underdog. 1-5 against the spread. The only cover for Penn State back in the 2022 matchup against Ohio State. They lost that game by 13, but with a late touchdown, came through the back door to cover as a 15.5-point dog. Penn State expected to win a game as good as you will find, and I mean that at the power conference level. But even when ever so slightly not expected to win outright, that's where things become tricky for the Nittany Lions. Big matchup between Marcus Freeman, trying to prove he is on the upper echelon of coaches in college football, even on the younger side, and for James Franklin to win a game that often Penn State has not. And Donnie, that's a part of this conversation and narrative as well. Penn State was expected to blow out SMU at home inside Beaver Stadium. Check. They were expected to cruise past Ashton Genty and Boise State. They did exactly that. Check. But this is a time where Penn State is catching points, and that has been an issue for Penn State under James Franklin. Let's talk more of the matchup tonight, those key matchups that I would like to highlight as well. Notre Dame against Georgia. Just 66 yards allowed on the ground, 2.2 yards per carry. Against Indiana, a better rushing attack than even that of UGA this year. Only 63 yards allowed, 2.1 yards per pop. Notre Dame throughout the regular season allowed more than 133 yards per game, because you can't often throw on Notre Dame, who has been a top 5 passing defense in all 3 seasons under Marcus Freeman. This year, 3rd best passing defense statistically in all of college football. Nobody takes the ball away better than Notre Dame as well, DRS. 31 takeaways this year, the most in FBS college football, 148 points off those takeaways, also the most in college football.
Yes, and I agree with you on that, because when you're winning football games, what do most people say? Who's going to win the turnover battle? Because if you do that, you're giving yourself extra possessions and stalling out drives for the opposing team. But if we are saying, all right, Penn State, can they move the football in the air? I do believe they can. Harrison Wallace, not a great wide receiver, but certainly a solid one. But Tyler Warren at tight end certainly provides that extra oomph, which a lot of teams don't get the luxury. He can run the football, he can throw the football, he can catch the football. He does it all. So when you're looking at Notre Dame in that secondary, they're going to be tested, because Drew Aller has one of the best arms in college football. If they're able to connect, and we're not talking about 275 plus in the air. We talked about his price point around 183 to 185. If he throws for 200 yards, that means you're keeping that team honest, which gives you extra rushing lanes to lean on that defense for 4 quarters. And eventually, one of those 2 running backs, if not both of them, will be able to break through, as we've seen in the past. I just think the design of Penn State executing against Notre Dame's defense is going to be a little bit easier than Notre Dame's offense executing against Penn State's defense. And we're sort of looking at Jeremiah Love as that X factor. If he's 100% healthy, he can make the big play in the passing game and also in the running game. But if he's not, it turns into a more methodical game without a great passing game. I just think it's going to be a little bit tougher for Notre Dame to score than Penn State.
Running backs on the other side in the biggest games this year for the Nittany Lions. Big Ten title game, their 2 matchups in the college football playoff. Both Katron Allen and Nick Singleton in the same games have had at least 70 rushing yards. They both are elite. A 2-headed monster in the backfield. More on the early line next. For the first time in the first ever 12-team college football playoff, we have reached the Final Four in a semifinal round that begins tonight in the Orange Bowl in Miami between Notre Dame and Penn State. So to help us continue our breakdown, preview, and give out some best bets, who better to join us than the mastermind of the college football pigskin? That is Joe Lisi, and looking very sharp, might I add, bright and early on this Thursday morning. Can we go to the ISO quickly for Lisi, guys, so you can see in its full essence how beautiful that jacket looks? It matches nighttime in Death Valley. It matches the stage and the significance for tonight's game in South Florida. Lisi, guy, as always, we appreciate the time here on the early line.
Oh, anytime, guys. Love the show. The Sean Stellato special for the Garden State, breaking it out black on black with a little pinstripe. Doesn't get better than this when Notre Dame and Penn State's on tap.
So, that does get better than that shirt. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, DRS, you are often the fashion police here on the show. Would you like to be fashion police briefly, just of Joe Lisi's attire for the Orange Bowl tonight?
Like, it looks like maybe he was like a male cheerleader in the 30s for the Chicago Bears or something at this point, right? Like he got that from his great-grandpappy. I like it, you know what I mean? Bringing it back. 60 years, 70 years in cotton mothballs. Let's go. Your great-grandpappy was a cheerleader for the Bears.
You can't wear this. You can't pull this off. This ain't your style.
I think I can. I need to. Can we get you to stand up though? Like I need. Like, is it a sweater? Like, what is this? Like, can you stand up? Like, can we get widen out and get a preview of this?
Jacket.
Like,
what are you talking about? Style.
I know. Like, it doesn't look. It looks like a sweatshirt. Like, it feels like you like a big M, like in high school. Like you have like a logo right in the middle of that sweatshirt.
He does.
Go Bears.
He does.
Yeah.
It does look a little bit like 1930s-esque, some sort of sports attire or memorabilia.
Yeah.
Listen, I think he looks pretty good, but I knew we were going to have some fun here joking around with Donnie. Sure. Would you like to say anything in response, Lisi Guy, before we actually break down and preview the game?
Yeah, out of all 3 of us, I'm the only one that could pull this off. So, so I didn't expect you or DRS to like the jacket.
Breakdown?
I mean, we're talking about style.
Breakdown of the coat.
It's basically what we're talking about.
I mean, listen, I agree. I would never even think of pulling that off. Never even attempt it. I'm not so
You got to
sure
pull it off and
about
throw it
Donnie,
away.
but
How about that?
you're good, man. You're good. When Lisi is here, it just brings even more out of you. All right, let's preview the actual game. The Orange Bowl tonight. The 7th seed Notre Dame, the 6th seed Penn State. And Joe, as we know, and where this line opened up, it was always expected to be close. Notre Dame, a slight favorite, just 20 cents of difference as we get ready for the matchup tonight in Miami. Our lowest of the two totals that we have for our CFP semis at 45 and a hook. Where do you start your breakdown for this game between the Fighting Irish and the Nittany Lions?
Well, I think it really goes to which team were you more impressed with in terms of both of their wins. Were you more impressed with Notre Dame in terms of back-to-back wins against Indiana and Georgia, or were you more impressed with Penn State and their ability to manhandle both SMU and Boise State? I think when you look at Notre Dame and their road right now, they were able to run the football, even though they had the big run week one in terms of the playoffs against Indiana. They still rushed for well over 150 yards. Well over 4 yards per carry in terms of the statistical output. And they shut down Curtis Rourke in that matchup in the rushing attack of Indiana. And they followed it up with another dominating defensive performance over Gunnar Stockton. And I think that's the matchup later tonight. Can Drew Aller exploit that secondary that's basically holding opposing quarterbacks to 50% completion percentage? They've only allowed 12 passing touchdowns all year and have forced 18 interceptions. They're going to need a big day, in my opinion, if you're a Penn State Packer, from Drew Aller in the passing attack. I just don't think they could do it. I think Notre Dame is the more complete team, and that's why I would lay the 1.5 a little bit later tonight, guys.
Let's look at that total, Joe. Sits at 45.5. We just had our Fade the Public poll, and the majority of the public is saying this game is going to be an under. If it is an over, how does it get there? Who are the players to watch out for to help get that over?
I think it's both quarterbacks and Donnie. I'm already booked and booked on the 45.5, and I already altered it as high as 49.5 in terms of the alt market at plus 134. I do believe it's both quarterbacks. Again, I think in this type of matchup, you can't just run the football and expect to have success early on. You have to break tendency, be more aggressive on first and second downs. I think Riley Leonard, his number is 163.5. I think he can get to 175, 200. And on the flip side for Drew Aller, I think it's imperative that Penn State does throw for well over 200 yards if they're going to pull this ball game out. I just have more confidence in Notre Dame and their offensive line than I do Penn State right now. And again, you look at Notre Dame shut down Georgia to 62 rushing yards as well as Indiana. So Drew Aller better have a big day over the top tonight, guys.
So, Lisi, guys, just so you know, and you can add it to the algo if necessary, in our Fade the Public poll, more than 34% Notre Dame with 1.5, laying 1.5, 31% with Penn State taking 1.5, but basically picking Penn State to win outright. More than 27% on the under, only 5% backing the over of 45 and a hook. That is a Joe Poe special, as he likes it, for tonight's Orange Bowl in the college football playoff semifinal. Lisi, guy, you lean with Notre Dame. You do think we see more points than expected tonight in South Florida. So when you focus on the Irish and how the offensive scheme will look tonight under Mike Denbrock, who needs to step up in the biggest stage of the year for Notre Dame?
Well, obviously it's Riley Leonard, but Faison, Greathouse, those wide receivers need to step up. And we saw it in terms of early success against Georgia. They were able to throw the football consistently, and that allowed Riley Leonard in the rushing attack to take over once they had a double-digit lead. So when you look at Greathouse, he's got a cheap number tonight at 11.5. Faison, I believe, is in the high 20s or 30s. I think he can break out as well. So that's the way I'm looking in terms of both of these players tonight. You know, all the receivers in Notre Dame, and then obviously anytime touchdown is on the table as well for Riley Leonard and the crew.
If we are taking a look at the ground attack, which is going to be prevalent tonight, two really good running backs for Penn State and also theoretically two really good running backs for Notre Dame. But the question is, Joe, if we open this game as you're watching it live on set, Love's at 35.5. If he's not all there or getting the carries, is that just a direct correlation where you now move to Riley Leonard and also the price? Or if he's not healthy, does that mean more of passing attack here possibility for Riley Leonard?
Yeah, I'm not going to back Jeremiah Love in terms of the total yards, Donnie, because of the injury. If anything, I would take him for an anytime touchdown in terms of goal line situations. They want the bigger back in there, and that could be value for Notre Dame. But I agree with that. I think it's Riley Leonard through the air over the 164.5. Again, I altered him as high as 200. They throw to run the football a little bit later in the matchup. But again, his mobility will be critical. He had 80 yards on the ground against Georgia's defense that could run sideline to sideline. And we saw, Boise State move the football as well. I think Riley Leonard, in terms of the RPO game later in the matchup, if they do have a lead, could be a factor. So I would back Riley Leonard through the air and also on the ground. But I would take Jeremiah Love in terms of anytime touchdown tonight, guys.
Maddox Madsen did throw for 3 bills in the air, albeit with 3 interceptions. Both Penn State's defense and Notre Dame's have been ball hawks and keying in on takeaways all year long. Jeremiah Love, who tweaked that knee injury, re-aggravating it in the third quarter against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. That game against the Dogs, Joe, the only game Love did not score this year, had scored in each of the previous 13 contests for Notre Dame this season. Let's show you the props for Penn State. I'll ask you a question on the other side, and maybe Donnie will do the same for that backfield of Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Key for Notre Dame to slow down the rushing attack of Penn State tonight. But Lisi Guy, the number on Drew Aller does certainly stand out. What does Penn State need out of Drew Aller if they are going to stay in this game? Joe Lisi breaks it down for you up next, live right here on the Early Line. We continue our preview of the Orange Bowl next. The college football playoff semifinals over the next 2 days, starting on this Thursday in Miami in the Orange Bowl, and a preview of the Cotton Bowl in Dallas tomorrow night between Ohio State and Texas as well. The mastermind of the Pigskin, Joe Lisi, is back for a second consecutive segment. Right before the commercial break, Joe, I mentioned the passing yards prop of Drew Aller. You see it there. It is not overly high, entering the Orange Bowl tonight against Notre Dame, 183 and a hook. If Penn State is going to stay in this game tonight against the Irish and perhaps win outright to book a spot in the national championship, what does Andy Kotelnicki's offense and those Penn Staters need out of Drew Aller in the aerial attack tonight against the Irish?
It needs to look similar to what they did against USC in the second half of that game earlier in the year. They need to spread Notre Dame out and challenge that defense over the top, and then they could run the football with Katron Allen and Singleton later in the matchup. I honestly believe that. I would take away, if I'm Notre Dame, Tyler Warren, so you need those other playmakers to step up. Evans and Wallace at the wide receiver position. And think about what Notre Dame did against Georgia. They took away Oscar Delp, and they took away Lawson Lucky as well in terms of the tight end matchup. I cannot allow Tyler Warren to beat me tonight. He's got a 63.5 number. We know that's the security blanket for Drew Aller in terms of this matchup. Take him away and force the game on the Penn State wide receivers. If they could do that, I think Notre Dame has a recipe to win the game. But if Penn State wins, those wide receivers, Evans and Wallace, need to step up with a huge performance tonight.
Should be a really good game tonight. And then again, another national semifinal on Friday night between Ohio State and Texas from Jerry World. 5.5-point number in this game as a favorite towards Ohio State. Total, Joe, 53.5. Let me ask you this question first. Is there too much recency bias going into Ohio State hammering their previous 2 opponents and Texas not getting enough respect? Or is that line warranted in your mind?
No, it's not warranted. I think it's just an overreaction of what we saw over the past two games. And again, yes, Ohio State is hitting on all cylinders. Will Howard's playing lights out, completing well over 73% of his passes. Jeremiah Smith, Amika Buka, they're hitting on all cylinders. But again, I think a lot was taken in terms of the game of Texas and Arizona State. People are assuming that Arizona State was just Boise State and SMU, and that's not the case. They were a very physical group. Offense and defense lines. They were battle tested, had one of the best running backs in the country. And again, Texas still won that matchup. They won it by 8 points, granted, in overtime, but they still found a way to pull it out. I do not believe that Ohio State's going to have the success that they had against Tennessee and Oregon in terms of the passing attack. This is one of the best secondaries with Notre Dame in all of college football in terms of Texas. They forced 21 interceptions, have only allowed 8 passing touchdowns all season long, and held opposing quarterbacks to 58% completion percentage. I think Texas is live as a dog. I took them on the money line, guys.
So from the yardage output, Lisi guy, Texas has been the best statistical passing defense throughout the regular season, only allowing just a tick over 146 yards per game. I was going to ask you, you think the Longhorns are live to keep this game close and within margin, but you just shared it there. Texas outright on the money line in the in-state showdown for the Longhorns inside AT&T Stadium. Lisa, guy, when you talk about Texas's passing defense, that's one side of the football under Pete Kwiatkowski. But on the other side for that Longhorns offense, coordinated by Steve Sarkisian against the nation's best scoring defense in Ohio State, what do the Longhorns do well offensively to try to win this game outright against the Buckeyes?
Well, I think their passing attack is much better than Tennessee's and Oregon. You know, you look at Oregon, and granted, Dylan Gabriel didn't step up in terms of the first half of that matchup. Tez Johnson was nicked up in terms of the first quarter. Evan Stewart, their slot receiver, didn't even play in that game because he was injured in pregame. We know about this passing attack by Quinn Ewers. They're going to challenge Ohio State over the top. Gunnar Helm, I think, is the X factor as well. He came on in terms of the overtime period against Arizona State. They tacked a 44.5 on him. I think Ohio State has shown at times to be exploited by the tight end. Expecting a big game out of Gunnar Helm, expecting a big game out of Quinn Ewers. Again, I think they have the speed to challenge Ohio State over the top. This is not a slow offense by Texas with Jaden Blue and Wisner coming out of the backfield as well in terms of the passing attack. I think they can create mismatches, and I think it's game on, guys. I don't know if we get over the 53.5. I trend to the under in terms of this matchup, but I think Texas has the speed offensively to put up some points and definitely win this ball game outright.
A lot of question marks around Quinn Ewers, which means how well is he going to play in this game? We'll find out. When he does transfer, if he does, how much money is he going to get? But my question is he going to play this as a complete game, or do we see packages for Arch Manning? And Joe, right up your alley, can I sell you on an anytime touchdown out of Arch Manning at a 12-1 price?
Yeah, Donnie, you can. I mean, that's a great bet. I mean, the reason why I say that is now it's all hands on deck, right? We saw Arizona State push them to the limit in terms of that matchup in the second half. They had a double-digit lead. We've seen Texas at times with big leads. Vanderbilt earlier in the year, they played down and allowed teams back in, right? This is an opportunity in a semifinal playoff game where if they're not starting fast, it's all hands on deck. They need to win this game, and they haven't used Arch in terms of the playoff situation just yet. In a big matchup, in terms of breaking tendency, I think it's a pretty good look, and especially in terms of red zone opportunities. 12-1 is a good look.
Just went to 13-1 as we talked about it. Whew. Well, look at that. Moving line.
Reverse.
The wrong way. Yeah.
Is the market
like it even more,
you
Joe?
Guys? Almost
we like it even more then. Yep.
Oh, all right. Fair enough. And I would just say, Lisa Guy, in your projections, right, national championship game a week from this upcoming Monday in Atlanta would be Notre Dame and Texas. The Longhorns right now, 4-1 price, second best number to win a national championship. Notre Dame, 5-1, just 50 cents in front of Penn State. The Nittany Lions, the longest price, but only back at plus 550. If that is how you see it, if you agree with Joe, this is your time right now before the semifinals begin to get in on those national championship numbers with the Buckeyes a minus money odds-on favorite at minus 130.